All right, am I back? I think I'm back. Hammerstones. Hammerstones come in all shapes and sizes, and basically, the fact that you've got rocks in your area does not mean that you've got rocks that are any good at all as hammerstones, because I have been in areas where they got plenty of rocks and none of them are worth a flip to be a hammerstone. Hammerstones, a lot of them are kind of good used as dual purpose, and so when I say dual purpose, I mean for direct percussion, but I mean also to adjust platforms and stuff like abrading or turn edges, different stuff. 3 or 4 different things you can do with them actually. So the two factors that tend to be important in hammerstone selection is the grittiness or not of it and the hardness. And the two sometimes are kind of mutually exclusive, because a lot of the harder hammerstones aren't as gritty. But grittiness is good because it helps you catch and grab onto a platform. Like when you're hitting on a steep platform, you would like it to kind of grab a little bit, and on edges, you would like it to grab a little bit. So the grittiness factor of it, how non-slick it is when it hits something, is a benefit. But then at times the hardness factor of it is a benefit too, because this is like a softish sandstone. This is a harder quartzite. Well, there's a lot of flakes that I can take with this rock that I can't take with this rock. I hit with this rock, it don't come off. I hit with this rock, it will. And especially when you're getting into a piece like a hard Cortex cobble, you know, this will get me into a whole lot of rocks that this one will not. And the other thing is, you know, if I hit too hard a rock too much with this, this is just gonna explode. It'll just break up. So, and the death of one of your favorite hammerstones is a really tragic event, folks. So, if you really become emotionally attached to one of your hammerstones after it's, you know, served you well and been shaped by all your work and everything like that, it might be best to just retire that thing or turn it into an abrader and not use it that much, so you don't have to go through that loss. At any rate, you got to use a big enough one. Sometimes you want to go progressively, and sometimes you want to use a big ginormous one if you're trying to do spalling. But the mass is critical, sometimes you got to use a bigger one. And then sometimes you want to use a little bitty small one, or maybe a narrow one that you're trying to get into making platforms or isolating platforms with, or whatever, turning edges. You know, you got different stuff, different sizes, different materials. So try different stuff, and if you don't know what a good hammerstone would be made like, or feel like, or look like, then what you need to do is you need to find a good avo napper and con him out of sending you a couple of hammerstones, as soft and harder hammerstones that are known to be good, so you'll at least know what to go look for. Okay. This is an interesting thing. This is float copper, or this is actual natural. It's been polished here on this side, but this is natural copper from the northeastern Michigan area that is the kind of copper that may have been used by Native Americans mining the stuff or finding the stuff on the surface, glacial move stuff. Not back in paleo times, but at the end of that, you know, or archaic times or whatever. But if you wanted to try and fudge the difference between being a copper napper, or you wanted to try and do copper in a way where you could say, well, you know, I'm doing woodland pattern type points and stuff, and this is the kind of copper I use because they use this. Well, then you can find something like that. I know, I don't want to talk about it. I'm splitting hairs there, but whatever. Notchers, you know, on the paleo, or on the abo stuff, this is the Bison Rib. It's been cut down to the outer edge of it. You can see it's got that cancellous bone, that spongy bone in the middle, cut down to the outer edge, which is the strongest part, and filed. And you can use stuff like that to do notching abo wise. This is a deer ulna bone. Ulna bones have a long part that you can file down or rasp down rather, and make them sharp, and they can be good for notching and for edging. This is a rasp that's flat on one side, domed on the other side, and it's got two different coarsenesses of rasp on it. It's kind of good for shaping antler and bone and stuff like that. Use that. Indirect percussion, I do use indirect percussion. One of the things I do, I need some more tools, and I'm kind of lazy about that. I don't always get the best tools for abo, and I'd like to have some long, straight punches for horizontal work and stuff like that. But these are little peg punches. What I do with these is I can put them in an angle on a platform and hit them, and of course it's very accurate, but also it's more controllable than direct percussion. And these are not power lifters to get big old huge flakes off or thin a big biface, but they do work pretty good for certain things, and they work good for small thinning. And I usually hit them with this, but I really need an antler, a little flattened piece of antler that's drilled out or something, and to use as a striker. Flakers, I mean, a flaker is what you want it to be. You can get some deer tines, and of course a straight tine, and it's easier to hold without it rolling when you're pushing with it and stuff. But again, the difficulty, the wear and tear on my hands and stuff, I do use just regular antler tines for fine work, but I have a couple of abo issue sticks. This is one that I just made, and all I did was I took a tine and put it in some Osage, and it's not all that long and it doesn't flex, but it works much better than a hand flaker as far as me being able to apply pressure with it. But one of the problems you're going to have if you go to making your own stuff is the ends get so much pressure on them that it's hard to have a material that doesn't crack out if you don't put like a copper ferrule or steel ferrule around it or something. And one of the potential solutions, this is a commercial, this came from Kentucky Flint Works website, and I've had a good experience in dealing with dentists also. So but you know, there's different people. You could make these yourself, or anybody can make them for you, but nylon or Delrin is pretty strong, and you can go as thick as you want to try and increase the wall strength of these things. But it looks like it's drilled out with about a 1/2 inch. It's got a couple of set screws, and then what he's doing is taking his antler tines and just, I guess, putting them probably on a belt sander or something and rounding them off and putting them to the diameter, and he sells those too where you can stick them in there. So that can work pretty well also for pressure work. Let's see. Leather. A lot of times when I'm doing stuff, if I'm doing punch work, but also for some of my pressure flaking, I again am trying to get it where my hand doesn't close so far, so I do a double fold of some bison skin and wrap some deer skin around it so I don't tear up the bison skin as much, and do my pressure work on there. An interesting thing about copper versus the abo is that you get a totally different effect from flaking over a notch where the stuff is coming off in the air than you get sometimes when you flake on leather. Leather flaking can be good or bad. The good side of it is if you do it right, the leather traps the flakes and makes it run, and you can actually do overshots and just running stuff all the way across the face of stuff with it. If you do it wrong, the place where the leather contacts the point will cause your flakes to hinge out and break off and put a bunch of little steps on your stuff. So it can be very, very, very good, and I sometimes use leather to get myself out of a problem, but it can be an issue too if you don't know what you're doing with it. I always have, I didn't mention before on my safety issue, I have hand sanitizer. People, I don't believe in working rock that is just been sitting out in the yard and is wet or dirty, and the reason is because, you know, if you're not careful, you're going to cut yourself. And putting the stuff in your cuts, you know, could get you a great infection too. So I tend to work stuff that's dry or has been inside or whatever. You can pressure wash your rock when you bring it out of the field if you want to. I haven't done that, but anyway. What else do I need to say about tools? I guess I'm still talking, I guess, beginner level information, and I've got a little bit of time left on this particular video, so I think I'm going to talk about rocks a second, or terms. Basically, this might not be a great example, but I consider this to be something between a blank and a biface. A blanked rock is one where a lot of the spare material that you don't need has been knocked off of it. It's like a field dressed rock, to where it isn't really a biface per se yet, where it's been shaped a lot on both sides, but it also isn't just a big old rock either. It's been worked enough to where you can tell somebody got it ready to sell or take home to use themselves or whatever. And I consider this to be like a blanked out rock. So if you hear somebody talking blanked out rock or blank, that's what they might mean. A biface is like this with a little more work on it. You know, if this has the $4 price tag from when I bought it on it, but so ignore that. But the amount of work done on this side, with about 20 or 30 looking hits or whatever, if you had that same amount on that side and it was a little more worked, I'd call it a biface more. And I don't want to get in any terminology wars with people that know more than me, or are more particular in their terms, because, you know, whoever gets to define the terms of a discussion always wins, right? These are some things I just grabbed out of in the house when I came out to show you about the tools. These are sort of roughly bifaced, not quite preformed pieces, and this right here is a pretty bad with the issues, piece of novaculite, which is a metamorphic stone, came out of Arkansas. This looks like this is more almost a preform, but it's still just a biface, because can't really, I guess you could call it either one, and nobody's gonna get on your case about it. This is like Tennessee River kind of rock or something. This rock has directionality. Some rock does that, to where when you flake it one way it flakes good, you flake it the other way, it's a lot more of a challenge. And this is a really tough rock that I decided probably needs some heat before I try and finish it, if I don't want little steps all over it. This is a piece of Pedernales flint from Texas, and I would call this a biface. But it has certain issues because it's got a bunch of little fossils in it. You can see the little calcareous shell type fossil stuff that's in there. It's got a bunch of little fossils in it that make it a challenge. And really, I biface this, I think, get a little nap in, and I just brought it home because I didn't want to go through the tediousness of trying to think about what I was doing and work it, finish it there, and I haven't finished it yet. But it's good enough to be workable raw. But some other terms real quick. Steps and hinges. Basically, I should have done a big old step on a rock and brought it out to show you, but I haven't. I don't have one. But basically, when a flake runs in on a rock and breaks off and makes a sharp edge, that's called a step. Technically speaking, when it goes in and rolls out and makes a rounded underhung step, it's called a hinge. But some people just call them all hinges. That's a big problem. There's a little one, and these are fairly small ones, because as you do it more, it doesn't happen as much, and you actually do it on purpose. I mean, what I was trying to do here is get it real flat, and it's fairly wide, so those little things aren't a problem for me to deal with. But a lot of times new nappers, they make much bigger ones, and they're really a problem for new nappers because they have trouble not making them, but they also have trouble dealing with them because they confound for their flaking. If you try and flake into a stepper hinge, it tends to get worse. Well, man, I really don't want to keep going on past 15 minutes on this, so I think I'll come back on my terminology thing. But anyway, that's the tool stuff. Hope it was of help. So, bye.